We're live. Welcome, everybody. So we are live for our SoundMind Panel. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to join on and know that we're here. Do us a favor for those of you that are jumping in. Make sure that we are leaving our comments, questions, share, like, love, invite someone in, your sisters, your cousin, them, mom and pop, join in on the discussion tonight. So we're going to give everyone a few minutes to join us on our SoundMind panel. Hi, Mylita. Welcome. Hi, Keith. How you doing? Hi, Keisha. Can you guys see them on there?
Yeah.
So welcome. Please, as you're coming in, do share the page today. So listen, right off the bat, we're doing like a nice little open forum today. So I have two amazing mental health professionals here today who is going to be sharing their expertise with us as we're talking about self-care. We're talking about bouncing back after the pandemic. We're talking about finding the right therapist, and we're going to have an open dialogue today. So any questions you have specifically about self-care, about monitoring yourself, about finding a mental health counselor, about what to look for, just about overcoming all of the stress and trauma and everything that we've all been through over the last few years. And we're trying to find a new normal, right? But that looks very different for everybody. So we want to make sure that we are supporting you all today as a mask mandate. What y'all think about that? Is coming to an end, and a lot of people are feeling very differently on two totally different sides of the spectrum on how they feel about all of the change. And so lots to talk about today. Hi, Mona. So please come on in, share, like. And I want to go ahead and introduce to some, maybe everybody is familiar with Liz, I'm not sure. So Liz is an LAC licensed associate counselor who now has joined Pathway Counseling Services. You want to introduce yourself?
No.
People.
Hey everyone, what's up? What's going on? Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Williams, Liz. Most of you know me by. Just joined on with Pathways Counseling. So excited. I love working with youth, adolescents, adults, and couples, the whole gambit. I've been in the mental health counseling field. My experience extends about 12 years. So across an array of environments. And glad to be here.
Yay, thank you, Liz. And you guys are no stranger to Deacon Nefessa, the owner of Graceful Paths Counseling, we're correct? And is a licensed clinical social worker. I always get tongue-tied saying it. And so, Nefessa, say something.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hi, Sister Keisha. I saw your comment. Thank you for coming on tonight. And everyone that has joined, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be among my sisters in the profession. And just, happy to be able to share whatever, God gives us to be able to be a help to each and every one of you. For those that don't know me and are not familiar with me, as Reverend Tiffany said, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm trained in family therapy. And so my specialty is working with adolescents, older children, adolescents, and adults and families. And so I work for the Camden City School District, and I do private practice a couple nights a week. And so just enjoy being able to be a support to whoever the Lord puts in my path. So happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Deacon Nefessa. So welcome everyone, and we're going to kind of jump on in. Please go ahead and share, ask your questions. We can see your comments, so we will post some questions that you have, and we hope to be a good resource for you today. you all know that like it's very difficult to find free therapy. So y'all are getting some nuggets tonight that I hope will help you, that you can take, and something we're going to impart you can take with you as you go on your way. And y'all getting this for free, right?
Yes.
Getting it free. I'm sorry, I froze there for a little bit. So yeah, so come on in, take some notes as we're talking about self-care, and we're going to jump right in. So let's define self-care for a minute, ladies, okay? So self-care requires checking in with yourself and asking yourself how you're doing and what your body is asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people misunderstand self-care and think that it is synonymous with selfishness and self-indulgence, and they are not the same thing.
Right.
So one of the things in this season that we're learning is that everybody, no matter who you are and what you do professionally, everyone needs to take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes those of us that are professionals or parents, we don't give ourselves enough grace to take good care of our mental, physical, and spiritual health. One thing that is extremely important is understanding that we all, at the very foundation of who we are, have very basic needs that have to be met, right? Whether it's love and belonging, whether it's aesthetic needs, whether it's your sense of safety, whether it's your spirituality, all of those things are critical just as a foundation, but you'd be surprised how many people are lacking in almost every category where we have a need. And it's because while we are outputting at work, we're working on being productive, we're working on being parents, we're working on being spouses, we're working on being good siblings and children to our own parents, but we are not doing enough putting back in.
Right.
So I want to ask, let's start with you, Deacon Nefessa, about one of the things that you see happening, especially now in this season as it relates to self-care, and some tips that people can use to pay closer attention to what's happening with them.
Yes. I think this period of time has been extremely hard because, for about almost a period of 2 years, we were in a shutdown mode where many people were working from home, students were doing school from home. And so while you think home is like, oh, it's my comfort place, I can relax, you're actually doing a lot more. You're exerting a lot more energy. You are, because you're working from a computer, right? And you don't have your traditional environment of school or work around you where you have this, and you've had to create the school at home. You've had to create the office at home if you didn't, already have one. And so you're working that much harder to ensure that you're not missing a step. You're not missing a beat, and you're trying to keep up with everything. And so it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And what has happened was, I know for a lot of young people, they were, falling behind with keeping up with schoolwork, that social connection, not being able to physically see their friends, to physically see their teachers, maybe get the support that they need with their work. All of that made things really, really challenging, and feeling defeated, So what happens when we feel challenged and overwhelmed? We start to shut down. Some of us start to shut down, right? And maybe or maybe overcompensate in other areas. And sometimes those other areas aren't as healthy. So I think that one of the most important things to do is to recognize what is your capacity? What are your limitations, and what are the things that you can do, right? We all would like to think I'm unlimited. I can do everything, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes there are limitations to things that we can do, and just acknowledging that and then saying, these are the areas in which I need help. I need a little bit more time to get this done, right? And verbalizing it and saying it, asking for what you need. As opposed to ignoring that I really do need help, and I do need to be able to prioritize in a different kind of way, not saying anything and just kind of fumbling along the way. No, ask for what it is that you need. Right. And if that person can't help you with it, then go to another person, who might be able to help. So I think that's a very important skill to do, so that you can feel like you are progressing and you're getting, things done. So
Deacon Nefessa, are you asking people to swallow their pride and
absolutely
and be human?
be human, right? You know, in these environments that sometimes make us feel like we can't, right? No, be human. It's okay.
And you know what? Practice some mindfulness. So like be aware of what your body is telling you. So I know, different people respond differently to stress, right? Some people have that eye twitch. I know when I get a little stress or I find, and it might just be a little stress or something that triggers something else that's unrelated to something I'm not doing at the current time. You might get that little eye twitch. No one sees, but you feel, right? Headaches, you need to be mindful of.
Yes.
Just, sometimes people get like nervous itching or just sweating or just exhaustion. Be mindful of what your body is feeling and experiencing in the moment. Sometimes you just need to reset. We were all quarantining. So, right, the office, the house, the dog, the children, the homeschooling, all of that was in the same environment, right? And everything was happening at the same time. Everyone was multitasking.
Yeah.
When Deacon Nefessa talks about working harder, she's talking about everybody combining different environments into one space. You can usually go into work and you have that boundary of this is work, and it's a helpful way to separate home and work. You can't do that when you're at home, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are still experiencing that stress. And for people who love to be outside, you were shut in. And that could also just stress you out, whether or not you were overexerting yourself via work or not. So you need to be mindful of what your body is telling you, because your body will respond to stress.
And that's such a good point, because there's so many people in this season who did not recognize, because it's something so new for them, that they were experiencing depression or anxiety. They chalked it up to be something else. Oh, I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. Like, I'm just so tired. Like, and they use that, and they don't realize that it's something much deeper than just the regular fatigue that we typically feel, right? So they feel unmotivated. They feel like they can't concentrate or they can't focus. They feel like the chest pains. Like, why do I feel like I'm dying? Like, I can't, like, I never had this feeling. And for those that took the risk of going and see a therapist and swallow their kind of pride and ego and ask for help, recognize that, oh God, I just found out I'm struggling with anxiety. I've never in my life had anxiety. And I think it's because we have gone into something new, and it's important to pay attention to what your body is telling you, because a lot of us are experiencing something so different than what we were before, like you both have shared. And so be mindful, right? Be mindful of what's happening emotionally with you. Crying spells all of a sudden, not being able to focus at work, your productivity may be good, but not where it was. Those are indicators that something's not right, and we need to check in with ourselves and give ourselves some grace. It's something that we don't do enough of.
Absolutely.
Tiffany, you said something that trigger a thought. I think that this time made us even that much more sensitive, right? Emotionally, because we were forced to pay attention to things that we were able to, deflect attention from, like, and just, and so now it's like, oh, these things are right before us. And so we've had to deal with them. We've had to have the hard conversations. We've had to clean up the junk that's been around the house in the corner for months, all of those kind of things. But our emotional state of who we are, I think, is more hypersensitive because we've been, in that position.
Oh my gosh.
Tiffany, I see you. Tiffany.
Oh, yeah, Tiff, yeah. The eye twitch. I twitch everywhere. My hand be shaking.
And the shake. That's the thing, too. I remember, Tiffany, when I first got that eye twitch, when I first had it, I remember my supervisor told me at the time, years ago, oh, that's normal. It's normal. I'd never had an eye twitch before. I said, my eye's twitching. I don't know what's happening. And my supervisor said, it's normal. My eye twitches. It's a normal thing. And I said, okay. And later on in life, as I transition more in my profession, I realize it's not okay.
Yeah.
I need to regroup. I need to just see what is overstimulating me and where
Mhm.
my mind is just overwhelmed. And
Mhm.
then I need to figure out where I can find a balance, right? Where I
Right.
need to be healthy and more stable so that my body is not trying to give me a warning sign.
Yes, absolutely. And you made such a good point too, and something that I think is important too that you said, Deacon Nefessa. First of all, balance, right? But also, I think we did have distractions that we thought were healthy, but we were manipulating it in a way to not handle things that we should be taking care of too.
Yeah.
So one big example of that that people may not want to admit is church, right? Like the way that we love church and love worship, but for a lot of us, we still weren't dealing with things at home. So we were coming in and engrossing ourselves in activities, but not actually submitting to the will of God, not really praying when we got home. And then when the church closed, it was like, oh God, I really don't have like
What we gonna do?
what we gonna do, Lord? I don't have the church as a safety
We don't
net.
have it. The person to person connections that we're missing.
Yes,
So many people,
revealed a lot.
always asking Pastor Nick, Bishop, when is the church opening? When is the church opening? And they keep reminding us, they're like, y'all, we gotta be safe. We gotta be safe. We gotta be safe.
Mhm.
And a lot of us have underestimated how much just being in the house of God has been an outlet for us, right? We have Bible study and we have all our classes, and in addition to like Sunday school and then church on Sunday. It's a church that never sleeps.
Yes.
So we have a lot of opportunities when the church was open. So I encourage you all to utilize the virtual forums that are offered all week
Absolutely.
long as support. We have Bishop, Pastor Nick, Pastor P, everybody. The church has so many virtual outlets where like you guys can engage with us. Like tonight, I implore you to get
Take
involved
advantage
with
of
your
it.
church
I
virtually.
see Pastor Grace. He's like, yes, church became a fix. It really did. It became like a quick way for people to escape life. And while I believe that there's a part of that that we should do, right? Like God gives us a sanctuary for a reason. It's a place of safety, a place of healing. But a lot of us started to abuse that and and not take care of other things, right? Like our health was suffering.
Yes.
And we would not go to the doctors, and we became saviors to everybody else and becoming so involved that we're not practicing good self-care.
Yes.
And I don't believe that God is pleased with that either. That when you have people sitting in church with chest pains and not eating healthy and not going to the doctor,
Right.
and involved in us, oh, I can't miss service. And I'm like, sis, you're gonna miss a whole lot of services.
Right. You're not even gonna be here.
You're not even gonna be here.
So it's important to take an inventory of doing something that you really enjoy or something that relaxes you, something that's mindless, right? And I'm not talking about like plugging into social media and being glued to Instagram, Snapchat, and all those other Facebooks and Insta, whatever. I'm talking about, whether it's taking a walk for you. If you like to do yoga, if you like to take a class, or if you don't feel like going in person still, take a class virtually, on the television, or find something that you like to do, like reading, you know what I mean? If there is a television that you like to watch it. A hobby. I encourage you, find something that you enjoy, even if you haven't done it in a long time. Hair, skin, and nails, guys.
Yeah.
Take care of your nails. Just get your nails done. I know a lot of people who get their nails done and it's a minute to just shut down and just get your nails done. Your hair, facials or spas, things like that help you relax. And help you to learn how to shut your mind off.
So go ahead, Deacon Nefessa.
I was just going to add to that. I know for me, one of my, and this is like something I do every day, right? But one of the things that I love is my shower time.
Me too.
Love my shower time. I have my aromatherapy products.
Yeah.
I'm like the bath shower gel that I'm doing I do the whole thing. that time is sacred and is important for me because that's my time to relax and just enjoy, me. And I also like sometimes when I'm working with clients and we're talking about how to, work through anxiety or just how to rest, I even use a diffuser,
I do all the time.
aromatherapy oils like lavender and eucalyptus and peppermint and tea tree, different things to just set an environment, and I have it on in my bedroom. So when it's time for me to go to bed, I can rest and just smell and take in all of those relaxing fragrances. It is nothing wrong with doing those kinds of things to just settle your spirit because you're hustling and bustling every day. You're trying to meet demands. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to stop, pause, and meet the demand of your own care.
Absolutely. Deacon Nefessa, while you're talking about that, so we do know that what is self-care for one person isn't for someone else.
Right.
And that also what self-care for us at one time may not be self-care for us in another time. How do we pay attention enough to ourselves to know why is this typically works for me? Like a good shower and a hot shower might work for me today, but something is going on with me today that I'm still feeling, what kind of encouragement or suggestions could we give to the person that's saying, for some reason, stuff that used to work for me, I try that and it's not registering. It's not helping me get out of this funk that I'm in.
I think that that's one of the most important things is awareness and paying attention. And if it's not working, then looking at different other, alternatives. As long as, and hear me, as long as it's healthy, because unfortunately, some people do delve in things that are not as healthy for self-care. But explore other things. Like you may not be a person that exercises. And now that the shower is not working anymore or the diffuser is not working anymore, right? Those are the two examples I gave. You may want it's going to start to get warm. You may want to take a walk, right? And walk around the park, even if you do it by yourself, it's okay. Like just try different things. I just ordered an exercise bike, right?
Me too, I got one.
I'm not playing. I'm going to lose this 21 pounds that I gained during this pandemic. And so I
got an app on my phone, y'all. I don't have a bike, but I got an app and I just started it. So for those who don't have bike money, get an app.
I'm not playing. I bought a bike so that a stationary bike that I can get on every day and pedal and just, play some music and just, and that's another thing. If you like music, try different things till you find one that fits for you in that stage where you are at that time. Because things do change, we evolve, and certain things don't work for us anymore, and that's okay. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means you need something different.
Absolutely.
And don't be shy to talk to someone. If you've tried things and it's not working and you don't know where to turn, right? Like the shower is not working. I tried to walk. I really don't feel like walking. Maybe it's time to just have a conversation and just receive a little bit of counseling, a little bit of therapy to just see if there's anything else behind that could maybe be a trigger that you're not aware of.
I agree. And what you're talking about is like emotional self-care, right? Because sometimes we engage in like the physical stuff and the walks, which are wonderful for helping to get your endorphins up, to get that serotonin up. But then if you're feeling like I still feel like blah, like something is not right and it's something that sleep doesn't help fix. Some people say, I'm just going to sleep on it and rest. And then you wake up and you still feel exhausted after sleeping for all weekend. You done slept 3 days straight and you still wake up feeling completely drained. That's when it's like, there's emotional stuff or spiritual things that needs to be worked out. And we have to pay attention to that and figure out, okay, what is happening to me emotionally? For some, it's the need for attachment, right? The need for connection with others. And there are other things that could be going on that we're missing, especially during the pandemic with us being kind of in silos and not having that physical touch. And some of us really crave that and need to be aware of what's happening. Like I had a client who had mentioned that she was really struggling with the depression, but she realized that she missed being on the train with other people and being with her coworkers and having that moment where you can go to someone else's office and chit chat with them and have that camaraderie. And since it's just her and her husband, she doesn't have any of that for the past 2 years, and she's a social butterfly and is missing that connection. And that does take a toll on your, just your ability to connect and feel like you're grounded. Community is a big value system to a lot of people, and not having that can take a toll on people's emotional health.
And we're emotional beings. The Lord created us to connect and to relate. And so, I know in my lifetime, I had not been robbed of that until this pandemic. We all experienced some level of robbery with the pandemic because, you were used to doing your routine and you had to just stay in home. And for people who live alone, imagine like it was really intense, so, but we're made to connect with other people,
Sister Liz, can you talk about structure and how sometimes disorganization and a lack of structure and balance can take a toll on someone's ability to like feel better and grounded in their space? Because I think that's an important thing, especially because Deacon Nefessa, in the beginning, you had talked about how the pandemic had us all in one place having to change things. But I think some people were not prepared for that because they're not very good at structuring up and keeping a daily schedule. And that has messed with a lot of people's like, this is not for me. These kids need to go back to school. I'm not, it's hard to keep a balance.
So yes, when you said it, you said the keyword schedule, but I'm going to get to that. So what Reverend Tiff is talking about is she's talking about like when you are trying to manage so much that your mind is overwhelmed because you're trying to do multiple things at once and you're trying to multitask and you're not an octopus, right? We are all hacks to meet deadlines. And if you have children in the house at the same time, you're trying to help them meet deadlines. Right. And then God forbid you have a dog that needs to be walked. Right. And then maybe dinner needs to be cooked. And then, a lot of people I've been watching while we're in meetings, especially during the pandemic, they're in a meeting. The dog is barking. Their child is asking them for something at the same time. And they're also, while they're in the meeting, trying to do something else, whatever that might be behind the scenes. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. And it's okay to be like, you know what? I can't do it all. Have a schedule, right? Even with your children. So mom is going to be in a meeting for a little bit. And while she's in a meeting, I need you to use this and work on this, right? The dog needs to go away. Have a schedule. Make a things to do list. It should be your best friend, whether you put it on your cell phone, whether you write it out, and then get that gratification of crossing things out. Try it. It feels so good to feel accomplished of having to finish something. So structure in the schedule is key to allow your mind to process things in order. And then to also know that you need to be realistic with the deadlines that you set for yourself and the deadlines that you're asked to meet. So if you look at your schedule or your things to do list and it can't fit in one day, you need to roll it over. Or maybe you need to not spread yourself thin and maybe it needs to roll over into another week. It's okay. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a break. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah. And because, like when we do plans for our clients, even we have to make sure that the goals we set for them are attainable, measurable, right? That they have to be realistic. So, if I have a client that, what did she say to me? My goal is to lose 70 pounds in 70 days. And I'm like, first I was like, oh, that's great. And then I was like, wait,
how you do that?
How you gonna do that, girl? That's a pound a day. And she was like, yeah, that's my goal. And I'm like, hold on, wait. That is a lot of pressure to put on yourself, And it's not even realistic. And a lot of us try to set things that are not really going to work for us and in our context, especially if you have you're pulled in so many different directions. You have to give yourself some grace. Deacon Nefessa, so what about so both of you can probably answer this. What about those that say they really want to take a break and do self-care, but they just don't have time, right? Like, how I'm gonna do that? How I'm gonna take a vacation? I got kids, I gotta work, I got deadlines to meet. I'll do it later, and they put it off like, I can't. You need to take a vacation. I can't. Your health is failing. I know, but I can't. Maybe next week, maybe next month, I'll plan it out, and they never do.
I will say this, that you must.
Yes.
You have to, because your life depends on it. You cannot continue to run like a machine.
Yeah.
Think that you're not going to break down.
Mm-hmm.
Batteries don't last forever.
They
That's why we have to continue to buy them for the different things that we use them for.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take care of yourself, and by all means, as you're self-sacrificing for everyone else and for everything else, you deserve the same. And so you have to set aside the time and plan that vacation. I don't care if it's going to the beach for the weekend. Start small. It doesn't have to be really dramatic, because sometimes some people don't have the time, from their jobs, meaning like vacation. So if you could do weekend stuff, start small until you're able to do something more extended. But you have to, there really, you can't make any excuse, because guess what? And I say this all the time. I feel like I'm notorious for it. Let you pass out on that job, okay? They are going
to step right over.
There's going to be somebody who will take your place.
Keep going.
In 1 to 2 weeks, it will be fine. You have to take care of yourself. And for those that are homemakers, right? Who maybe they don't work, and maybe their spouse works, right? Or maybe they, that's not their situation. Maybe they are a caretaker, right? Still, and there's respite services, do what you need to do so that you can have time to breathe and just relax. And it's okay. And don't let nobody make you feel guilty for taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Don't let no one make you feel guilty for doing that. Because again, that you pass out on that floor at the job, at your house, they're going to replace you at that job.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But that's a good point. And you need to remind yourself, self-talk is very important in that case, because you need to remind yourself of your worth, right? And sometimes all you need to do is just turn your phone off.
Turn the phone off.
Start small. If you can't take a vacation right now for whatever reason, take an hour. Try turning your phone off on silent. I know it brings people anxiety, but try to unplug. Try to unplug so that you can reset.
Absolutely.
Take a walk without the phone. Right? Or if take the phone if you need for safety. Put it on vibrate or put it on silent. Put some earphones on, listen to some music. That's a time where you could just do something like maybe just go get a massage, right? Go to the movie theaters. When you go to the movies, you turn your phone on silent. Well, we're supposed to silence our phones. So go somewhere, do something that requires you to not be plugged in.
Yeah. So they say that paying attention to your well-being involves asking yourself big questions such as, what brings me satisfaction? And one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with as it relates to self-care is not even knowing what brings them satisfaction, because we're so busy doing for other people that you'd be surprised how many people don't even have hobbies, don't have things that they do that they enjoy. They're like, I really don't know. When I finally have a break, I just want to sleep, right? Which is okay, but sometimes we don't spend any time getting to know what brings us a sense of like
Joy, peace.
Joy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, other than sleep. When you're not asleep, what are you doing?
Mhm.
You know, working.
Right.
You know, being tired
Right.
and worn out. And so, what can we do to encourage people to be very self-aware, right? About, you know, pay attention to the things that bring you joy and peace.
Right.
Where can they start with really exploring that within themselves?
Yeah. I think, you know, you raised a really good point. I mentioned this earlier, we kind of evolve over time, you know, we develop, we grow, we learn the things that we like, we don't like, but that comes from spending time with yourself. And it comes from also just, you know, taking advantage of opportunities, you know, and really begin to get to know yourself, you know, all over again. You know, I may have liked pink when I was 10, but now and now I love yellow. Like that may be like a really silly example, but it's really that serious of really just tapping into what is it that I like, you know, what is it that I don't like, you know. But it doesn't happen from, you know, it happens by going and taking advantage of opportunities, things that come up. Like, you know, I remember years ago, I was just like, I'm gonna take myself to dinner. And I did it and I was okay. Like, I realized I didn't need, this was in my 20s, right? But early 20s. And I realized I didn't need a crowd around me. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed myself, right? And it's something I can do at the drop of a dime. I don't have to call nobody to go out to eat. I can go by myself. But then there are times I want to be with other people. But you won't know until you do it, you know.
Take a risk.
Yeah, so just like take that risk, like Elizabeth just said, take the risk and just try it and see if you like it. Then you know this is something that I like to do. I can put this in that toolbox, right? And then the other one, I don't like to do these things no more. You know, getting to falling in love with yourself and getting to
Absolutely. Pastor Corey Grice has a question for you, ladies. When you are a caregiver, self-care makes you feel guilty. How do you avoid feeling guilty for taking care of yourself? When you ladies want to tackle that?
I'll say this. You can't be someone else's caretaker if you're on empty. Yeah. So you must replenish, you must refuel, because you won't be any good to anyone else. I say this often, as therapists, we also have to do our own work. Because guess what? We're asking people to share and be vulnerable with us and want them to talk, and we're there to listen. But guess what? We get tired too. We get burnt out. We get, you know, overwhelmed at times. So we have to do our own self-care so we can be the best care for them. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Liz, did you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say something very similar to what Deacon Nefessa said about making sure that you take care of yourself so that you can take care of someone else. If you think about it this way, you want to give your children the best part of you, right? And if you are drained, then what part of them do you have left? What are you giving them? What are you really giving them? Are you giving them the best, or whatever is left over of what you've got to give?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I giving you and I don't know why I'm thinking about this right now, but I'm thinking about like fruit. If you take a bite of an apple, right, and you leave it out, after a while, it turns brown. Are you giving your child that brown apple? Or are you giving this child a fresh apple that is like refreshed and a nice crisp apple? What are you giving your child? So think about wanting to give your child the best part of you by taking a moment, just a moment. I'm not saying a year, I'm not saying a month or a week or even a weekend, but just taking a moment to say, I just need to be able to take a breath and say, okay, I'm good. I'm okay. And I know it makes me happy, and I'm going to take a minute to just.
Yeah. Even like, you know, true story, like my son has special needs and he's been homeschooled since this pandemic started, and it has, you know, made us have to be very flexible with our time, and we have to be creative with how we schedule our days. And at times we just want to tap out, right? Like, I'm tired. Like I want these kids to go somewhere, right? And like it's
Get it. Go somewhere.
yeah, I want to go somewhere.
Your resources.
Yeah,
I have girlfriends who will call me up and say, "Hey,
take them.
myself and my husband need a weekend, whether they go somewhere or not. Come get them." And I'm
Right.
You have to use the community that you
Yeah.
have them, and don't feel guilty about that.
And that's hard for so many people.
Yeah, that's when you phone someone and you say, "You know what? Would you mind babysitting for an hour or two, or 3, or for whatever time?" Also utilize your resources.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this to the people who they don't have anyone that they could tag, you're it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
People who are out here that they are the resource, right? So I want to say that is when you have to build and expand community. And if you are a caretaker or someone who is sick, oftentimes there are agencies that have support groups, that have respite, services. And so, and build community like within your church, connect with people that you love and that, you feel like you're connected with, and they can possibly help you, those times where you need to run to the store, where you need to go and do this.
Right.
Like you have to build community. And I know I know that it can be a little scary because you want to trust. And sometimes, you're scared trusting somebody you don't really know, but that's where relationship, building that relationship and just, expanding your community.
Absolutely.
There are like reputable agencies that have reliable background checks for babysitters that you can use, right?
Yeah. I'm glad we're talking about that too, because I think the mom guilt is big for a lot of women. If we're going to go talk about that real quickly, like I can't spend time for myself because I got to take care of the kids and I don't have any help. And sometimes we have to be very creative with how we spend our time. Like sometimes, like I'm known to put them little brat in the bed early, okay, so I could do a charcoal mask. Like, go to bed. So I'm like, what time is it? I'm like, Julie and Libby, go put your night clothes on. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, woo. Once they in the bed, I'm like, and like I love them. Like I am obsessed with my kids, but that doesn't mean that you don't need time sometimes set aside for yourself. And to the point about caregivers too, sometimes when we're in the giving mode and we don't spend enough time doing things to replenish, it breeds codependency. Like there's something driving us to have to be everyone's savior without doing anything for ourselves. We become codependent on those relationships for something. And every now and then we have to take a step back and say, I love this person. I want to give them my all. But like Deacon Nefessa said, I can't do that if I'm not healthy, if I'm not well, if I'm not taking a step back and doing something to replenish and to refuel. And that's incredibly important. One other thing too is about the importance as it relates to self-care of having a sense of purpose. Because for some people, they have a hard time making moves to do things for themselves because they don't understand the benefit of it. Where's this going? Like working and doing and being active. Sometimes that's their only, feeling of purpose. That's their life. Their life revolves just around work. That's how they find their identity. So asking them to step out of that, I think for some people it's triggering because they feel like I don't have anything else to do, right? I'm not connected anywhere else. I don't find my strength anywhere else. So how do we address that?
I think that the answer lies in you have to get up underneath that and figure out where did this sense of non-belonging to or non-being able to do anything outside of this start, right? And really unpacking that and working through that, because we're more than just, a caretaker. There's the God has put so many gifts and talents inside of us, and that's just one aspect of who we are. But if we kind of gravitate to that, and I understand, like, people get in it, but if you can gravitate to that, you can also hide in that too, and just, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But you can do it. There are things you can do. So really getting up underneath why that is. And because it could have been something attached to your youth where somebody maybe made you feel like you couldn't do X, Y, and Z. And then you believe that thought the rest of your adolescent, life. Now you're an adult and you're still functioning from that place. No, let's destruct that. Let's figure out why, when that happened to you, when that was said to you, that was their opinion. That was what they thought. That's what they wanted to project on you. But that doesn't mean you have to live that way and you have to think that way. So it really, to me, is unpacking, the root of it, and getting out of that mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that concept of a self-check, of knowing if your belief system is fact or if it's fiction, right? If it's fiction because someone has told you, or is it fact because this is something that is you, or it's who you are or who you ascribe to be. And then do a spiritual self-check, like, are you living in God's will? Are you living in God's purpose, right? Are you reading your Bible? Are you living in his will? Are you trying to better yourself as a Christian?
Right.
Self-checks like that will actually open up a can of worms sometimes, where you do realize that all of a sudden that maybe someone said to you, formed a belief system that has you behaving in a certain way, and now has you forming your life and living your life according to that belief system based upon fiction.
Absolutely. And that is those belief systems too that make us so inflexible. We develop these strategies to protect ourselves over time. And it looks very different in adulthood than it does in your childhood.
Absolutely.
So when children, they think that children are very resilient and bounce back from hurt, but that doesn't mean that they forget. So they kind of learn at a young age to suppress and go play games. But that doesn't mean, but that doesn't mean that there are not cracks there from what people have said. And then as they get older, they still do that. They still suppress things. And then they don't, they have this belief system that makes them feel inferior to others, and makes them feel like they can't advocate for themselves, that they can't do for themselves without feeling guilty, or they are afraid of criticism, of not seeming good enough, or if I don't work hard and work myself to the grave, then people will see that I'm not perfect, And so we develop these very inflexible strategies, and they prevent us from doing enough work on ourselves to keep moving forward. It's hard to keep doing that over and over again and live like you're on a hamster wheel, just going through life with these things that we think are productive, but we're burnt out.
That's it. Keyword. And a lot of us in this pandemic have become functional burnt out survivors, or survivors of functioning burnouts, right? Like we know how to cover it up real well. We know how to keep it pushing. And then we also know how to just put that smile on our face when inside we are drained, right? And all the time we find ourselves tired, right? And then, we've got all these other things, from guilt and belief systems to stress and adapting to a new lifestyle. It can be a lot, and it's coming from all different aspects of life.
Oh, absolutely. I had a conversation. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on with my client, but something that I'm starting to see more and more, especially after the pandemic too, is how much people dissociate, right? So they learn, so they have their feeling brain and their thinking brain, but they don't know each other. Like, like hi feelings, have you met thought? Hi thought, have you met feeling? They don't know each other. So they're in situations with family, with friends, and they're talking, but they keep the emotions in the trunk. And no one ever really knows that they're struggling.
Right.
And we learn how to take hats off and put another hat on, and go to work, wear that hat, go to home, wear this hat, go to church, wear this hat. And we feel so disconnected. And then by the time we are in our quiet time, we feel like a hot mess.
Right. You can't keep up. It's
I
like
can't keep up.
Functioning in, I don't know if you guys have you ever, like when you're driving and you're like, I just don't remember how I got here. Like, you don't remember your travel. And you have to, sometimes when you're driving and then your mind is always racing. You're like, I went through all these lights. Like, none of them are red. Okay. We're functioning in that mindset and we don't really know it. We're not recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you say to someone, oh, how was your weekend? Or how was your day yesterday? Sometimes you can't even remember what you did over the weekend or what you did yesterday because you're so far into today and tomorrow and the next day and the following day that you're just coasting, right? Mm-hmm. Your mind is saying, okay, green, I already know, go, but you're not really mindful about the cars around you. You're not mindful about the people around you, pedestrians or deer around you. You're just driving. And that's how we're living life, especially in this pandemic. So,
on autopilot. Yeah. Unhappy, miserable, drained, but we're going, right?
And that's why we have to take a pause for the cause. And the cause is you taking time to just say, you know what? I don't even remember where I'm at right now. So I really need to just sit myself down, breathe, eat something to eat, recollect my thoughts, and figure out how I want to kind of approach tomorrow, right? Just shut down.
Yeah. So as we're getting ready to wrap up, I wanted to ask you ladies about tools. So ways that individuals, I know we talked about this already, but do you have any other suggestions for individuals who need suggestions on what they can do for better self-care? What types of activities, what kind of resources are available to them? What are some final thoughts that you want to leave with them about practicing self-care in their daily lives?
Make a bucket list. Make a list of things that you like to do or you like to try or that you would consider doing, and then Google them. Like Google, I love horses. I love horseback riding. So I Google horseback riding near me. And then I look it up and find a place that can maybe horseback ride. I love dancing. So right now, with the pandemic, I wasn't necessarily comfortable going into a dance class because of COVID, but they have like dance classes you can do virtually on the TV. Make a list of things that you like to do or you want to do, and then look them up and see if there's a way for you to do it.
Good.
Yeah, I would say I like what you said about Googling things. I'm definitely one of those people. I'll Google, ideas for this, ideas for that. The other thing I want to say is don't be afraid to jump out there and put some things on your calendar. I'm going to the zoo, right? I want to have brunch with my friend. Start putting stuff on your calendar, stuff for yourself, stuff for you. Like I said, get out there. The weather is changing. Start walking. I was doing Cooper River Park once a week, walking the entire thing with my sorority sister. And we just enjoyed that time of just being able to breathe while doing something healthy for ourselves. So explore things that you have not tried, healthy things that you have not tried. I don't know if you want to do a cook-off with a family member, just don't be afraid to step outside of the box and try different, things that may bring you joy. And if it's not for you, that's fine. Try something else, but do some research, and those things that you've been wanting to do for a long time that you've been pushing aside, pull that stuff out and start doing it. If your house is cluttered, declutter. A lot of times that's a reflection of what's going on in our lives, so just start stepping out, doing things that are different that you haven't done.
If you can't get to the spa, make your mask.
Yes.
Lots of videos. There's lots of creative ways that you can make your own self-care packets and kits from what you have at home. Utilize the resources in your house and make sure that when you schedule it and put it on your calendar, you prioritize it. So you don't say, oh, this is time for me to go for a walk with my girlfriend. But then, I got work and that's not really that important. If it's on the calendar, it's important. And it's
Mhm.
something that you need to prioritize. It is not something that you can risk rescheduling or minimizing. It
Right.
is just as important as every and anything else.
Mhm. I love that you said that, and that was all I was going to say. So you already said it, which is don't minimize things that bring you satisfaction. So a lot of times we think, oh, that's dumb. But if it works for you and it brings you peace and it brings you satisfaction, then do it. So painting makes me feel good. Other people might think it's work, but I will go paint a room in a minute, right? And like, oh, I want to change this color, and go like my store is Lowe's. I love Lowe's and Home Depot, and that brings me happiness, right? So I'll go change cabinet knobs. I'll go paint, like, and make a weekend project out of it. Somebody said about dog sitting. Some people like to foster. Some people like to foster animals, or take the children out or babysit their relatives. If that helps you, do it. If it's something that is something that brings you peace and rest and recuperation, then that's something that you should do for self-care. All right. So thank you, ladies, so much for being a part tonight. I thank you. Thank you. Thanks you, Liz. Thank you, Deacon Nefessa. Thank you all that joined tonight. Please, you can still go and share. Someone may need to hear that's really having a hard time. And if you would, please go share. And we will see you all soon. Thank you again. God bless you. Please take some of the stuff we talked about today. Go get something on that calendar. Take a break. I don't care if it's an hour. Do something for yourself, okay? Yes. Self-care. Thank you, guys. You have a good night. We'll see you soon.